It's Misha. Our 8:30 time is here. We're going to talk about the gallbladder this morning. So as we're letting people hop in, let me know where you're coming in from. Also, I just want to take this moment to say I have an event Friday morning, so I won't be live Friday morning. So we have 2 days left this week for me to go over things. Think about what you want me to go over in the next 2 days, and start putting it in the chat so I can get that prepared for you over the next 2 days. I mean, I've heard about blood pressure problems, PCOS, and somebody asked about skin, which is something I really go over. But think about what it is that you would like me to cover in the next 2 days so we can make sure that happens for you guys. Today, though, we're going to go over the gallbladder. Yesterday, we talked about the liver, and welcome in. Say hello to everybody, and let me know where you're at. I'm in Maryland. By the way, I'm from the West Coast. I never thought I would love it so much out here. I was kind of terrified of the East Coast, the things we hear. But in the particular area I'm in, I absolutely love this area and feel really blessed to be here. So where are you guys from? Do you like where you live or not? So we're going to talk about the gallbladder and insulin resistance and how it's all linked. Yesterday we talked about how insulin resistance affects the liver, and the gallbladder is attached right below the liver. So what we're going to talk about is the gallbladder function, why it's important, and all of that. So I'm just north of Baltimore near a small city called Bel Air. It's really homey, lots of convenience, trees, water, wildlife, really cool people. I love where I'm at. So yeah, it's beautiful here. It reminds me of home, except for the hill. There's hills instead of mountains, and the trees are deciduous trees and not evergreen. So other than that, it's so similar to home. The people, all of that, it's just a beautiful, beautiful area. Lots of places to go walking, hiking, parks, stuff. It's amazing, and the people are really cool. So, all right. Thank you. Yeah, I love it here, and we might be moving to Kentucky in a year, and so I'm kind of sad to leave, but it's just part of life's adventures. Just tuning in. So this is I talk about things that are related to insulin resistance every day, because what I'm finding is, like myself, many people are sick and they're going to the doctors and they're not getting real answers as to why all of these things up here are happening to them. So I try to go over one thing a day now, and right now we're going to go over the gallbladder, how it's linked to insulin resistance, how insulin resistance is causing it. Good morning, Melba. And I'm going to give you some ideas about what it feels like to have gallbladder problems, what you can do before your gallbladder gets removed, what you can do if you've already had your gallbladder removed, all of that stuff, and then how to help prevent insulin resistance from causing this whole problem in the first place. We're going to go over all of that. So for those of you who are just tuning in and you don't know already, insulin resistance is a blood sugar dysregulation problem. We're eating too much food that converts into sugar in our system too quickly, too often. That gives us blood sugar spikes. Constant blood sugar spikes are creating a need for a hormone called insulin. Insulin's job is to carry that sugar to every cell in the body. I found an amazing graphic yesterday. I'm going to use it in one of my videos. It's a cell with a key in it and sugar cubes going into the cell. That's kind of what insulin does. It's not the energy, it's the delivery system. So when we have too much sugar in our bloodstream, our body's constantly cueing insulin to get that sugar out of our bloodstream, because we can only handle healthily about 1 teaspoon of sugar in our entire bloodstream. And most of us are carrying far more than that. So we're consistently spiking our insulin. That's chronic too much insulin is causing this problem. That chronic hyperinsulinemia starts to become insulin resistant, where the cells don't like insulin so much anymore. They're inundated by it. They're resistant to it. They just don't want to open their doors for it anymore. Some cells are taking too much in. Most cells are not taking enough. When all that starts to happen, you're starting to store it as fat. Also, insulin is cueing the liver to produce more cholesterol. The liver does a lot of jobs. but in the presence of insulin resistance, it's creating more cholesterol. So we're going to tie that into the gallbladder in just a second. Melba says she's drinking her yerba mate tea, and so am I. I'm almost done with mine. I love the tea. Did you get the ginger flavor? I can't remember, Melba. We're going to talk about why we're drinking the tea and all of that in a little bit. But, okay, so the gallbladder and the liver. I'm going to give you guys, in just a little bit, I'm going to give you some symptoms and whatnot to know if you're having problems with your gallbladder, things to look out for, because this is a serious thing. I just spoke with someone yesterday who was very similar to me. By the time she had a gallbladder attack and she went in, it was so severe, they had to do an emergency surgery. By the time I realized I was having a gallbladder attack, I went in and they said I was 2 hours from death. I was so septic. My whole bloodstream had gotten infected. I was so sick. They said, had I waited 2 hours longer, I wouldn't be here today. It's serious business and we need to understand it, but more so understand how to prevent that from happening to you. So I deal with a lot of people who've had their gallbladder removed because of insulin resistance, and yet we're not being told that. So not only is that, let's talk about the gallbladder now. We understand insulin resistance a little bit. Insulin resistance is causing that excess cholesterol production in the liver. But what we need to understand is this little tiny gallbladder right here. It's a storage tank. It's a little storage tank. So your liver is continually producing something called bile. Bile helps you break down fats. It helps you metabolize fatty vitamins like A, D, E, K, and those omega-3s we all like to take so much, right? The omega-3s are great for us, but we're not really getting the utilization from them if the liver is not working properly. So now, the liver is pushing this bile into the gallbladder. That gallbladder is holding on to that bile so that when you eat, there's enough of that bile to start breaking down those fats and foods that you've eaten. Now, when the gallbladder is not working properly, there's 2 ways insulin resistance affects your gallbladder. Number one, it's having too much cholesterol end up in the gallbladder, which then creates a sludge and then creates stones, cholesterol stones. There's 2 types of stones you can get in your gallbladder. One is from bilirubin or old red blood cells. It has nothing to do with insulin resistance that we know of. But the cholesterol stones have everything to do with insulin resistance. We're going to talk about the increased production of cholesterol, not just in the liver, but in the bloodstream. So when the liver is overproducing cholesterol, that cholesterol is going into your bloodstream, but some of it is getting passed along with the bile into the gallbladder. When that happens, you start to create a sludge. Thickened gallbladder without stones is early stages of insulin resistance. If it's cholesterol sludge in your gallbladder, this can happen to women during pregnancy too. There's a real big problem with women having their gallbladder removed during pregnancy. I can't say anything except for that I don't agree with that, unless there's huge stones in there that need to be taken care of. The gallbladder problems will go away after pregnancy. So we're going to go over the symptoms in a minute. Let's understand what's happening. So the cholesterol, that thickened sludge, will eventually turn into stones. It starts to crystallize and become stones. So that excess cholesterol coming in is one cause of it. The second cause is decreased motility of your gallbladder. So I've talked about nerve problems, right? Well, with insulin resistance, it's not just your stomach that's not emptying enough. It's not just that your intestinal system overall slows down. It's that your gallbladder can no longer contract and squeeze and get that bile out and into the intestines where it can be utilized, the nutrients can be utilized. It's all sitting in the gallbladder because it can't be pushed out like it should be, and that constant buildup of cholesterol and sticking of cholesterol in the gallbladder creates the stones that happen later on. So if you've got sludge, I would start addressing the insulin resistance to help that gallbladder become more mobile, being able to squeeze and to slow down the cholesterol that's ending up in your gallbladder in the first place. So gallbladder symptoms, let me look it up because I can't remember all these symptoms all the times, guys. Let me find those symptoms. So if you're having gallbladder problems, or a gallbladder attack, you might have things like pain, and the pain is going to be in your upper quadrant, right under your rib cage, and more to the right side, especially after you eat. It might feel really painful there for a while, and you don't understand that. You just have this constant pain. That can be a gallbladder problem. If you're having that nausea, fevers after you eat, um, and if your stool is changing color. So if your stool is no longer just, we talk about poop a lot because it has to do with our health. But if the stool is overly loose, or maybe you're getting constipated, or it's kind of a chalky color, those can be indications that your gallbladder's not working. It doesn't push out the bile because insulin resistance is messing with your nerve endings. So the firing between nerves that tell the gallbladder to contract are being impeded. Instead of them firing from nerve ending to nerve ending, those messages are kind of going out the sides. And so it's not getting communication that, hey, we need to contract. Those messages are just kind of going out. And when we have things like edema and neuropathy, that like tingling pain we feel throughout the body, that can be part of this nerve ending firing. Well, it doesn't just happen in your arms, your legs, your feet. It's happening throughout your body. In the gallbladder, it means that you're not going to be able to contract your gallbladder as much, and it's not going to push the bile out. This also happens in your stomach. You end up with acid reflux, in part because your stomach isn't emptying. So that acid, instead of being pushed through into your intestines, is sitting in the gut, and it's coming back up your esophagus. In your intestines, it's not able to contract because those nerve endings are impeded, and now you're ending up with impactions, constipation that can lead to gastroparesis, where you can't get the food out of your intestines. It's all linked. And in your gallbladder, it's happening similarly, so that your gallbladder is not squeezing and contracting, you're releasing that bile when you eat at the right times. So the symptoms were those: you can have pain in your stomach, you can have nausea, you might have some of that acid reflux, you can have some fevers, it can feel a little bit, you can have some vomiting. For me, it felt like I had food poisoning. I was convinced I had food poisoning, and 3 days later, I'm like, I've never had food poisoning last this long. It was a gallstone attack. So it can act very much like a food poisoning incident, with all the nausea, fever, pain that's going on, especially in your gut. Those are some symptoms of that. Now, there are other symptoms. If you are just having a gallbladder that's not working properly, let me get those pulled up, because you guys, again, I can't remember all of these all of the time. I am just a normal woman like everyone else here. I have a lot of studies pulled up, so let me get to the ones that have. I lost the study that had the symptoms in it. But if your gallbladder's not working right, you may be feeling fatigued. You may have that pain. You may end up with a lot of bloating after you eat. Like if you feel like your upper belly is like distended, like for me, it felt like there was a balloon. You have some gas and bloating, especially in the upper abdomen, and just this pain, like you don't want to eat anymore. It would keep me awake all night, several nights after I ate. So we're going to talk about what you can take and what you can do to help all of this in just a second. So the first thing you want to do is understand, before you get to the point before you get to the point where you've had your gallbladder removed, you want to start addressing your insulin resistance so that you're reducing the amount of cholesterol that your liver is creating. Plus, the liver's not only passing some of that fat into the bile, into the gallbladder, causing problems there, it's passing some of it into your bloodstream. Now you're having increased risk of high blood pressure, and heart problems. So we've got to get the insulin down, and we're going to talk about that. What I do is understand that insulin resistance, there are a number of things that can cause you to be insulin resistant, but they're a very small part of the equation. The bigger part of the equation is sugar, sugar dysregulation. So we want to make sure that we're regulating the sugar that we eat. We can't get away from sugar. It's in everything we eat. Even when you're eating organic, our foods have been changed and fibers and nutrients have been stripped out, and soil depletion and all the stuff, which I've talked about numerous times, are happening so that when we eat, our foods are converting to sugar too quickly and causing this whole insulin spiking problem. What I do is I make sure I get in enough fiber before I eat, every time I eat, to help keep my blood sugars regulated, because that's the key that has happened to our food, is that it's been removed from our food along with other nutrients, and it's allowing these blood sugar spikes. I'm not saying I never have sugar. I'm just saying I regulate it by adding in a supplement of fiber before I eat, every time I eat, which I just mix in a bottle like this, drink down 10 minutes before. My A1C went from 7.4 to 5.3. My fasting blood sugars went from 240 to 98. And all I changed was this. I don't have a perfect diet. I don't have a perfect life. I'm an average everyday person like you guys. I'm not doing super low keto. I'm not doing all of that stuff. I'm a normal person. The one thing that helped me was a system, a tea in the morning. Melba's drinking her tea this morning already, and a pre-meal drink that I have before I eat anything. You had a stone in your bile duct. So we're going to talk about some of that. Yeah, it's weird. Melba says it's weird when you have gallstones, your poop is a really pale color. You might have diarrhea. There's a lot going on. So the gallbladder, it helps you with metabolism because it's helping digest certain, let's finish this up first. Tea in the morning. Tea in the morning is what I did for the insulin resistance part. I'm going to talk about what to do to help your gallbladder beyond this. And if you don't have a gallbladder, beyond doing this, what you want to do to help with, my recommendations of high protein, high fat, high fiber. Okay, so tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything, that saved most everything for me. It wasn't in time to help me with my gallbladder, because by the time I started the system, my gallbladder was full of stones that were large enough that I couldn't pass them. And so emergency surgery after emergency surgery, the gallstones were taken out, or the gallbladder was taken out. First, the duct was cleared, and then the gallbladder was taken out. Painful, excruciating. We're going to talk about some of those things. So we've talked about how the gallbladder makes stones, how you get to be at risk, and we need to address insulin resistance. And I hear this from so many other people who are learning just like me, that had they had this system 15 years ago, we can look back now and see, like, my joints wouldn't have had to been replaced, most likely. I wouldn't have had my gallbladder removed. I wouldn't have had all these other things had I understood insulin resistance 15 to 20 years ago. So that's why I'm here talking about it. So hopefully somebody, not everybody, but somebody will understand and learn and get better just like I did. Okay, so I've got notes, you guys. I've got notes. So you can have, if you have not got enough bile when you eat, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. So now we're talking about either the gallbladder's not pushing bile out when you eat, or you've gotten your gallbladder removed and you don't have enough bile as you're eating. Again, we're going to start with insulin resistance, get that under control. Whether your gallbladder is gone or not, you still got to pay attention to insulin resistance, because now it's still affecting your liver, and we don't want to lose that as well. So your gallbladder is not pushing out enough bile. It affects your metabolism. Your metabolism actually starts to slow down. How you utilize energy is slowed down. Now, a person with a healthy gallbladder taking in the same amount of calories and types of food as someone without a gallbladder or a gallbladder at risk, the person who's healthy will be able to metabolize that and not have weight gain. Whereas the person who's having gallbladder problems and maybe even had their gallbladder removed is now having metabolic issues. the dysregulation in how the body uses energy is really prevalent once the gallbladder is removed, because it also affects your thyroid. The bile that the liver is putting out and the gallbladder is storing when you eat is affecting your thyroid in this way. Your thyroid hormones, T4 and T3, so you have TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Your brain's telling your body to produce T4. Bile helps convert T4, which is an inactive form of thyroid, into T3, which is the active form that actually goes into the cells and tells you how to use the energy or food that you're eating. So if there's this dysregulation going because bile is no longer present in the right amounts and it can't convert the T4 into the T3, now you have an energy regulation problem that's affecting your metabolism. Insulin resistance also does this. So you're already having an energy regulation problem where T4 is not converting to T3 just because of insulin resistance. Then when your gallbladder gets at risk, that compounds. Now you're converting even less T4 into T3. Your energy regulation problems in the body become really heavy because the body just isn't being told what to do with that energy. So that's the gallbladder's effect on your thyroid, and you've got to understand this because when women have I mean, it happens to men too, but it's more prevalent with women having their gallbladder removed that all of a sudden there's this weight gain. You eating the same foods, maybe they're causing you more pain than they were. Maybe you're not being able to lose weight or you're gaining weight, and you're like, what happened? I'm doing the same thing, same activity level, same food, same everything, but all of a sudden I'm gaining weight and I can't get it off. The gallbladder is so, so important in all of this, and we don't give it enough credit. So that's why I'm talking about it today, because I want everybody to understand that you've got to take care of that little tiny little organ that sits right under the liver. It's small, but it has a huge job in your body. So, interestingly enough, one of this, and some of this, yes, Ozempic can cause these things. This is why I am not an advocate for those drugs. You guys, there are so many lawsuits out there against those GLP-1, glucagon-like peptides that are because of gallbladder issues, pancreatitis, pancreas issues, thyroid issues, but mainly there's a problem with the gallbladder, and they're not telling people that it can cause you to lose your gallbladder by having those drugs. Part of the reason I'm not an advocate for them. So yeah, that's and doctors took your, I saw that comment. I didn't say anything, Mrs. Spray. Doctors took your gallbladder out. So hang out for just a few more minutes. I'm going to tell you what it felt like for me. You guys will probably resonate with that. And I've had a year-long journey of trying to figure this out so I'm not in pain every time I eat. And I want to share the information I've learned with you guys. Maybe you'll start to feel better too. Okay? So you have an impaired glucose metabolism problem also. Bile, interestingly enough, is helping you metabolize sugar and get it out of your bloodstream and into your cells. But when the gallbladder is malfunctioning or is gone, now it's not metabolizing those sugars. Those sugars are ending back up in your bloodstream, which is increasing your insulin resistance, which is increasing your likelihood to become diabetic. There is numbers that show that people who've had gallbladders out have more likelihood of becoming diabetic than not. So that's a personal choice. Josie says her doctors want to take out her gallbladder. If your stones are small enough that they're not going to cause you problems and you start to clean up this insulin resistance, and I'm going to talk about bile, you may be able to live with your gallbladder. If your stones are really large, that can be life-threatening, and unfortunately at that point you may have to have your gallbladder out. Talk to your doctors, do some research, and get the answer that's right for you about whether or not to have your gallbladder out. I would never want to tell someone to not have it out and then they have some obstructed bile duct that costs them their life or extreme pain. But you've got to find out, ask your doctors, for a better picture of what's going on in your gallbladder. Is it just because you have some stones that may be able to be passed, or is it because the stones are so prevalent and so large that they can't pass, or they're going to cause obstructions like the one I had? Yep. So Sean says a friend just had experienced pancreatic issues recently as a result of one of those meds, those GLP-1s. You guys be careful with them, please. Um, and some people are, I see that with those meds, I'm going to go off track a little bit, because they want to lose weight, because they feel like it's this magic drug, they will not be honest about some of the other issues they have, and then they're at risk for thyroid, pancreas, gallbladder issues, and a number kidney issues also. So just be aware of what you're doing. I'm not an advocate for those drugs for all of these reasons that you're hearing, and that's why. Um, do they help you lose weight? Yeah. Do they cause damage to the body? In my opinion, and in the opinion of Dr. Bickman, yes, they do. So back to the gallbladder. So glucose regulation is a problem. Energy regulation, as in metabolism and how your metabolism functions, is a problem. Now, the T3 and the T4, we've talked about that. That's a problem. But it's also causing a problem with your gut microbiome. The bile that your gallbladder is storing is helping the pH balance in your gut. When that pH is imbalanced because of the absence of the proper amount of bile being passed into your intestines, now negative gut flora starts to build. Now you have inflammation. Now that increases your risk of insulin resistance even further, and it's causing more of the problem. Now you're having more autoimmune diseases. I've been talking a lot about how doctors are saying they feel like all autoimmune diseases start in the gut and the dysbiosis in the gut. Get the inflammation in the gut down, and they could see an improvement or reduction or removal of a lot of autoimmune diseases. So, yes, it can be the reason why you're losing your hair. Insulin resistance can be. I was losing my hair 2.5 years ago. That's a whole other story. Hang out. I'll explain that in a minute. So your gut microbiome is now highly negative, partly because your body has this dysregulation of bile. There are so many factors that are with insulin resistance causing this negative microbiome. You may have more yeast infections. You may have things like psoriasis and skin infections, and you may be more prone to having other infections throughout the body because your gut is so overrun with negative microbiota. So the bile helps balance the pH. It's not feeding the probiotics, it's helping balance the pH, a whole different side of the story that I normally talk about in the gut to help improve the flourishing of the probiotics in your gut. And then that inflammation that I talk about, when the lack of bile is causing inflammation in the gut and throughout the body, that inflammation can lead to insulin resistance. The insulin resistance can lead to weight gain, and the weight gain can start leading to other issues and more insulin resistance. So understand that now you have less bile, and this is where, so beyond the system that I use, the tea in the morning and the 2 pre-meal drinks, you guys, I appreciate you asking these questions of me, because now as I go do the research, it refreshes my mind on what I'm supposed to be doing and how I can get healthier and how I can help myself. So you guys help me too, okay? Now, in doing the research, I had to reread some stuff and relearn, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have not been as consistent with my bile salts as I should be. Not at all. Now, when I read about the effects of bile salts in your system, and that bile can be coming from your own liver. If you're healthy, you can have this. Or you might have to supplement. If your gallbladder is at risk, or if you have no gallbladder, you might have to supplement. If you go to my profile link, by the way, the tea, somebody asked any tea. No, it's not just any tea. It's a specific tea. The system is found by going to my profile link up here. When the white box comes up below, tap on that, you'll get to my profile. Under the red light symbols, there will be a link where you can get the system, where you can get my free ebook, where you can see my recommendations page, and the bile salts and the digestive enzymes I use are there. Now, I'm going to tell you, with no gallbladder, I was not doing this, and I'm doing it now. I'm taking bile salts every time I eat, and it explains why there's been a number of issues we're going to talk about happening. But I'm going to talk about bile salts first, and then we can talk about all of that. By the way, the hair loss does come down to PCOS and hormone regulation. We'll talk about that later this week if anybody wants to talk about it. I can go over whatever later this week. All right. So your fat digestion is changed. We already talked that. Bile salts, taking bile salts, if you're already having problems and you want to help the insulin resistance further than the system I use, you can add some bile salts in. If you have your gallbladder and you just want to assist it, maybe 1 tablet a day is all you need. If your gallbladder's at risk or it's gone, you probably want to take those bile salts every time you eat, because remember, you don't have enough of them now because you don't have that storage tank that's pushing it out when you eat. So now you've got to add it in. If you have no gallbladder, you've got to add it in. Bile salts are important in breaking down and emulsifying fat so that it can be metabolized. Fat can be used as energy. Okay, we don't want it in this clumpy, bumpy thing that ends up in our bloodstream and causes clogged arteries. We want it emulsified and metabolized or passed out. Now, when it's not emulsified, some of it's going to go into the bloodstream and some of it's going to pass out in your stool, and you can either have constipation or you can have really loose stools. Also, or only fats. Bile helps with fat-related vitamins like D, E, K, and omega-3s, but it also helps with glucose regulation. As far as legumes, I can't answer that one. Honestly, I can't answer that one. I wouldn't see the regulation of those outside of those components in legumes, okay? So again, you're not getting, even if you're taking A, D, E, K, which are fat-soluble vitamins, you're not getting the absorption of them because you're not able to metabolize them without the correct amount of bile in your system. Liver creates it, gallbladder stores it. Okay, so then it also lowers the risk of stones. If you have enough bile so that cholesterol is not creating sludge, then that passes through your gallbladder easier. Now, if you don't have a gallbladder, you still want to take care of the fact that there's that sludge, because you're going to have, like me, you're going to have some urgency about an hour after I eat, gotta go. And it's not always pretty, but by upping my intake of bile and being more cognizant of taking the bile, unlike what some people are saying, you should be careful of it. And you do need to be careful if you have diarrhea and whatnot. But I've noticed more normalized stool movements when I'm using bile with no gallbladder. You can have some constipation for sure, because it just slows down your gastrointestinal system is not working. The bile is not breaking down the fats properly, and you can get constipated. So bile helps with constipation and loosening all of that up. We talked about the intestinal pH balance. So if you're having problems with gut microbiome, number one, take care of the insulin resistance, feed the probiotics. But in order to give the probiotics an environment that they can thrive in, you might need to add bile to help the pH balance in your gut. Okay. Then the bile helps detox the liver. The added bile will help get some of these fats and stuff out of the liver and passing through the body. So if you have fatty liver, you may be somebody who wants to think about not only addressing the insulin that's causing the fatty liver, but adding some bile salts to help the liver detox. It also helps reduce that inflammation in the liver. And again, we talked about thyroid. It's going to help you. Bile salts will help you with that regulation of inactive thyroid into active thyroid. Remember that thyroid is an energy regulator. You can be producing enough thyroid, but not converting it from one to the other. And if you're not getting that energy regulation signal into the thyroid, then you have a problem. So the bile salts, you can get them anywhere, but the ones I use are on my recommendations page. I don't sell them, but those are the ones that I use daily. They're a decent company, and They're not overly expensive. You guys, I know that like the system I use costs $5 a day, and I, like everyone else, has to pay attention to the money I spend. So I try to find things that do the job and are as clean as possible and not cost me so much money that I can't afford to have a place to live in, right? So in my recommendations page, there's bile salts there that are pretty clean. Just go carnivore and starve the fungus. So carnivore works for some people, but not for everyone. Okay, so that's hopefully is enough information about the gallbladder and the what happens if you don't have one. So here's a list of symptoms, guys. If you have a gallbladder and you're just having problems with it, you might have sluggish digestion, like your food doesn't go through you quick enough. It's taking a long time, and you're constantly feeling bloated, and you're constantly feeling fatigued because you have all this stuff, this waste sitting in your system. You can feel like you're really heavy after a meal, or your gut's just kind of bloated and distended after you eat. You can have some stomach pain, generally in the upper, right under the rib cage. By the right side, you'll have this stomach pain. And this is if your gallbladder's having problems. You can have vitamin deficiencies in that A, D, K, and E. If you are having deficiencies and yet you're feeling like you're getting enough in, it could be that they're not being metabolized. That's a problem with the gallbladder. That constipation, the pale and fatty stools. If you feel like you have to go to the bathroom right away after meals, that could be a fat dysregulation problem. That could be a problem with your gallbladder as well. Jaundice, if your eyes are turning yellow or your skin looks overly yellow, that can be a symptom that you're having problems. If you have, I can't read my own writing. Crazy. So if you don't feel like you can detox well, or you're holding on to those negative microbiota and you're having infections, that can be a sign. Dry skin. If your skin feels really dry, or you're having symptoms like psoriasis, that can be a sign of gallbladder problems. So again, taking the bile salts is going to help with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So if you have the gallbladder removed, you want to still address your insulin resistance first, because that's what caused the problem. Because when you have kidney disease, when you have gallbladders removed, when you have a number of these things happen, once they've gotten to the end stage, doesn't mean that you don't need to address what caused the problem. It means you've got to address that problem, and then now we have to start dealing with how do we live on the other side. I don't have a gallbladder either, okay? So when you have the gallbladder removed, what I do is I do the system, a tea in the morning. Somebody asked about the tea, and I'll talk about it here in a second. A tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything, to help keep my fats regulated going through my system, to help keep my sugars regulated. We just talked about my gallbladder not being there, how I'm having problems with sugar regulation and fat regulation. The system number one helps with those and has helped keep my blood sugars under control. Then you're going to take some bile salts every time you eat. So I advocate for a high protein, high fat diet. Can you imagine the problems we can have as a person with no gallbladder with high protein and high fat? Explains some of the issues I've been having. Fats are important to us, to our brain, to our metabolism, to our muscles. So we need to be able to metabolize them and utilize them. We need to be able to get them in, but not have them just shoot out our intestines, right? Bile salts will help with the emulsification and metabolization of those fats. If you have no gallbladder, take some bile. Take some bile every time you eat. Every time you eat. If you're having a high fat meal, you may need to take 2 tablets with the bile salts. The 2 tablets of bile salts with the meal. Okay, so taking the bile salts can help with cystic fibrosis, primary biliary cirrhosis, liver inflammation, hypothyroid issues, psoriasis, alcoholic fatty liver disease, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Whether you have your gallbladder removed or not, if you're having symptoms, that sluggishness, fatigue, dry skin, pain after you eat, bloating after you eat, you may be already having a liver problem, and you can get bile salts to help that. Again, I don't sell bile salts. The ones that I use, I just get them off of Amazon. They're in my recommendations page if you go to my profile link. So I'm going to drop that link over here for Facebook, YouTube. Okay. Just make sure if you're buying bile salts, I want you to save money, but I want you to not just go get the cheapest thing out there. Get a good quality, clean bile salt. Now I'm going to go back to the system I use. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth and why I use it, why I'm drinking this tea in the morning. So not only is this helping with my gut microbiome and inflammation, it has anti-inflammatory properties. We now know with insulin resistance, with gallbladder issues, those problems can be even more exacerbated in someone like me and those of you who've had your gallbladder removed. Now we're fighting inflammation even more. Now we're fighting this gut microbiome even more. Now we're fighting this fat dysregulation and glucose dysregulation and energy dysregulation even more because we've lost the gallbladder and because we've dealt with insulin resistance. So I still do this. It has anti-cancer, antioxidant properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties. It's been hyper purified, so toxins, environmental toxins like pesticides, molds, removed from it. It has 375 times the chlorogenic acids as a normal bagged tea that, by the way, contains all those toxins and molds most often. But it's giving me that. It's also helped my heart health. People who are worried about the caffeine content, there's about 80 milligrams in it, less than a cup of coffee. But three things, chlorogenic acids, theobromine, and mate saponins, called adaptogens, mediate how this caffeine acts in my body, not causing damage to my heart, giving me energy, giving me mental clarity, allowing me to burn fat for fuel, helping me start to become more regulated. And by the way, in a fasted state, drinking this tea, now my gut is starting to reset. Taking the bile salts before I eat is helping the pH in my gut. Now my gut can start to reset and rebuild that positive gut microbiome, the probiotics. Okay, so that's step one, a tea in the morning during my fasting window. I do a 16-hour fast and I eat during an 8-hour window. When I do eat, I have this product, which is helping with fiber intake, but it's been scientifically proven to reduce a blood glucose spike by 20%. So now understanding, my gallbladder's not working properly. I'm already having blood glucose dysregulation problems because I don't have a gallbladder because I had insulin resistance for so long. I really want to make sure that I'm taking care not to spike my blood sugars too often, too quickly. This helps with that, reducing a blood sugar spike by 20%. It helps with the lipid regulation as well, helping so that those fats aren't going into my system, overworking my liver that has no gallbladder too quickly as well. Plus, the prebiotics in this are helping feed those good probiotics. All of that means the system comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee. You do it for 90 days consistently. Natural, it's food-based product, so it's not medications, but it's in the prescriber's digital reference. Your A1C will go down, your blood sugars will go down, your lipids will go down by using this for 90 days, supporting your body by replacing what's been stripped out. Okay, that's the big thing I do. But with no gallbladder, probably the second most important thing I can do for my weight management, for my lipid regulation, for my glucose regulation, is to get those bile salts in. My company does not do bile salts, so I get them from somewhere else. I spent a lot of time talking about bile salts. I get nothing from that but helping you guys, okay? You've had Botox injected into your esophagus, so you can't take bile tea as you have far too much bile. So that's a whole different issue, okay? And I can't really speak to that. So you are probably going to have to really pay attention to the fats you eat. And I don't have You're going to have to, Peggy says, let me read this, regurgitation, so you get bile shooting into her stomach and esophagus so bad. Oh, you know what? Let's workshop these statements really quickly, and I want you to understand. Ox bile, yes. Ox bile is bile salts. So it's just sourced the same type of bile that we use, give you issues with the gallbladder. Ozempic can give you issues with gallbladder, where there's a lot of questions. You've had all symptoms of insulin resistance and type 1 diabetes. Your youngest sister has. The system that I use has helped a number of type 1 diabetics for the same reason. They have to inject insulin. We create insulin, but it all comes down to that sugar regulation. So if we can help reduce the blood sugar spikes, now they're injecting less insulin and they're having less of the problems. Type 1 diabetics can become insulin resistant by injecting too much insulin, just like we become insulin resistant by creating too much insulin. Ozempic and the gallbladder, yep, it's a horrible thing. So after having your gallbladder removed 7 years ago, you got serious complications called bile regulation. So let's talk about that. If we go back and understand Nanny Peggy, I'm just going to workshop. I can't give you an answer. I just want to workshop this. If we understand that insulin resistance caused the problem with the liver, that caused the problem with the gallbladder, that's causing the problem with your bile production and usage, that's also causing the problem with how your stomach contracts and is able to utilize and pass that bile through, I would encourage you to take a look at addressing your insulin resistance. When those nerve pathways and some of that kind of paralysis starts happening in all of this area down here, your stomach is not contracting. Now you have acid reflux, and all of this is passing back up into your esophagus because your stomach can't contract, because your gallbladder can't contract, because your intestines can't contract. So it's real food products that I use. It might be worth a shot for you to do something that's helping your health. Give it 90 days to see if it helps that. I would be really interested to know. If at the end of 90 days you don't feel like it's helping you, you can get all your money back. I would encourage you to try it. Just workshopping through that, it would make sense that all of those things are still linking back to insulin resistance, and getting that and the nerves working properly in the gut, the stomach contracting like it should, the gallbladder contracting like it should. You don't have a gallbladder, I think you said, but your intestines contracting properly could help you. I would think it would. That was a lot. And I'm so glad you asked those questions and I took the time to read. Yeah, so if you're getting type 2 diabetes is end stage insulin resistance. So if you feel like you're having type 2 diabetes, you're having problems with your gallbladder, you're having problems with your stomach not contracting, that's all linked to insulin resistance. Get that insulin resistance under control. Your nerves are going to start to act properly. You can start to get the motility back in your intestines. You can start to get your liver functioning properly again, your kidneys functioning properly again, your heart functioning properly again, your vascular system functioning properly, and certainly your nerve endings and your brain function, all linked into insulin resistance. I would really, really consider, if I was you, giving a shot at addressing the insulin resistance and nourishing your body at the same time. So again, you guys, the system can be found in my profile link right up above here. Tap on that. The white box below is going to come up. Tap on that over on Facebook, YouTube. It's in the comments over here. But try it, and then I'll work with you through it. Not a doctor, not a physician. I'm a woman who suffered with many of these things. So then we get to sit down and talk about, the things that I did and what I saw that helped me. So maybe it will help you too. I get to help coach you when you purchase with that link. Let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, so I haven't heard of it. And it's interesting that you said it, because now, again, when I went back through all the comments and read what was happening and not just the broken pieces I was seeing, it just totally, after, reading from guys like Ben Bickman, listening to like Dr. Hyman and a number of the doctors who are metabolic specialists, Dr. Fung, and all these guys talk about all this stuff. My brain likes to link the dots. That's why I love to do this, because I like to link everything up. And yeah, I do link most everything into insulin resistance. Are there, with all of these issues, you guys, with all of these issues, of course, there are outliers that could be something else going on, right? So insulin resistance is definitely related to our food environment. So we want to fix that. For me, what I want everybody to understand also is that even when you think, okay, I'm eating well, like I had a really severe head injury at 15. I was doing track and field. One of the guys thought he was being funny. He twisted my arm, it popped my shoulder out of socket. I was laying on the ground trying to put my shoulder back in. He didn't know what was going on. He threw a shot put towards me to try and just be funny, and the shot put hit me in the back of the head, knocked me out. Severe concussion. We now understand that that kind of brain injury can start to cause insulin resistance in the brain. And when the brain isn't giving the rest of the body cues, now a few years later, I started developing PCOS. A few years later, I'm starting to have weight regulation problems. A few years later, I'm starting to have all of these other things. So we can kind of link, just besides the crappy food environment, we can go back to my age of 15 and see where insulin resistance could have kicked off. Now, surgeries, being under anesthesia, and the trauma to your body that's causing inflammation can increase your risk of insulin resistance. Now you come away from those things, have multiple surgeries, multiple bouts of antibiotics, multiple of that. Now you're more likely to become insulin resistant with the same food environment as before, because you've set up this cycle in your body that's just exacerbating the problem. So understand that, yes, I talk about food a lot, but even if you feel like you have a perfect diet, but you're suffering with insulin resistance, there could be other things at play there. And one of the things is us not getting in enough fiber. So I love the people who talk about carnivore, and I'm happy that it's working for you. But most of us need fiber to feed that positive gut microbiome to help stave off all of these effects that we have going on. And the fact is that our foods are deficient in fiber. Even when we're eating raw organic foods, they're just deficient. Fiber is doing so much for us. And I'm starting to do a series on how fiber is affecting our health so that you can understand the importance of it in your system. So fiber is key. The tea that I drink, somebody brought it up the other day, and I don't talk about it enough. The Argentinian soccer team uses the yerba mate tea at all of their competitions because it gives them energy. It keeps them metabolically healthy. It increases their energy and stamina during exercise by 10 to 15%. The tea is amazing. And yet I went from a blood pressure of 180 over 150 down to 112 over 70 with no medications, just consistently drinking the tea and using the fiber to get my insulin resistance under control. You've had a couple of head injuries, Carrie. That could be part of it. Hey, Ro. So that could be part of how you end up insulin resistant. The food environment is the number one thing, but there are these outliers that happen to us that kind of kick us over the edge, right? So once we've been kicked over the edge, then what we want to do is, what we want to do is take a look at the biggest cause of the insulin resistance and start addressing that so we can get back to homeostasis, or our body working the way it's supposed to. Thickened gallbladder, no stones, he'd still remove as prone to chronic infection. I did not look up thickened gallbladder. Let me take a picture of your name. I would love to do some research on your nanny Peggy, on a thickened gallbladder and what's happening there. Is there any link to the insulin resistance? Because if it's that simple, let's talk about why my brain is going there, okay? Why my brain is going there is I now understand that with insulin resistance, some cells are hyperactive. Now, I didn't see anything in Dr. Ben Bickman's book about a thickened gallbladder from insulin resistance. But let me see if I can find anything on that. Because when we look at the endothelial cells, the inner lining of your blood vessels, that's some of the cells that are overreacting when we have this this presence of high amounts of insulin in our system all the time. And when those cells in the endothelium are overreacting, they're thickening up. And when they thicken up, what's happening is it's narrowing down the space inside of our blood vessels. So it goes from like this to like this because that wall got thicker. So my mind is going there because I'm thinking if insulin could affect the endothelium like that, is there any research, is there any possibility that it could affect other cells like that as well? So I'm going to look and see what I can find. Okay, that's why my mind went there. Little view into my head today. Yeah, so gallbladder stones, we just went over in depth about how gallbladder stones are caused by insulin resistance. So you guys, a lot of you are jumping in at the very end of my live this morning, and I love you for jumping in. If you want to see this live on replay, it is over on YouTube over there this morning, and you'll be able to go back and watch it at your leisure and catch all the stuff you missed. And then if you still have questions after you've caught all of that, just message me. My numbers are everywhere. I have links on every social media that I'm on, but a good place to catch the replay of these lives is over on YouTube. You don't know why you eat so much. You checked your sugar level. It was normal. You're 36. So let's talk about that really quick as well. Jeep girl, she's tried so much. Nothing helped her since the car accident. You guys, trauma, body trauma, head trauma is real in flipping that switch that kicks you over the edge to becoming insulin resistant. So just be aware of that. Now you do have to pay attention more to the food you're eating. So, can it explain, Jeep Girl, does it explain kind of like why maybe before the accident you were tooling along, same diet, same everything, fine. You have an accident, now all of a sudden you're developing all of this stuff and you're like, what happened? It could be that accident kicked off your insulin resistance. The inflammation and trauma can definitely do that. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So you guys, it gets frustrating, right? When you're going along in life and you feel like you're doing the same thing. Like I had some weight problems. I did, like, after pregnancies and after some traumas and surgeries, I got up to like almost 280 pounds at one point, which was huge. And I was having problems losing it. And we go through these cycles. How many of you guys feel like I try to do everything well? I try to eat well. I try to watch what I'm doing with my food, but I don't get any better. And then you just give up and are like, well, hell, why am I suffering through this diet that I don't really like? And I'm restricting myself and it's not getting me any better. So I'm just going to go eat the stuff I want. You kind of get into this depressed state and you just start eating whatever. Has that happened for anybody else? And Jeep Girl, thanks. She says the system has been a godsend for her, especially after her accident. Yeah. So she said Jeep Girl says she has just about everything noted above from 2008. Her brown spots are also leaving her face. I talk a lot about acanthosis nigricans, but that happened for me too. I had melasma so bad I felt like a character from Star Trek, and now I do have some age spots. I'm almost 60. This makeup is covering it. I don't put a lot of makeup on. The age spots aren't as bad as some people. But look, I've seen people at 60. I have some age spots. Okay. I've seen people at 60 who have far worse. I haven't done research into that, but I know that melanin dysregulation is linked to insulin resistance. And when I got that better, my insulin under control. Pamela, you're just going to go to this link here on Facebook, you guys. Yeah, okay. And so people are saying like they're giving up on their diets because it just doesn't seem like they're doing anything for you. You have PCOS. You guys, there's been so many questions about PCOS, and I just got goosebumps. Melissa, I will do a full talk on PCOS in the morning. There's something I don't. You guys, this is part of me too. Just love me or leave me, but I got goosebumps when Melissa made that comment. I would love to have you come on my live tomorrow and learn about PCOS and how it's linked to insulin resistance. I think it could really impact your life. There's a reason that I just noticed this message and you hopped in. So let's dive into that tomorrow. I will do PCOS and erectile dysfunction tomorrow because they're metabolic infertility, and we're going to talk about it and why. So, Lori, you're just going to look for this live stream about, you'll see the links to gallbladder on YouTube. It'll probably, it's live now, but it will save there when I'm done. So if you go to my page at Brilliant Health with Misha Fayant on YouTube, you'll be able to see today's live, every other live I've done, as well as all the short videos I do on these conditions, all of that. Skin takes do suck. They're part of insulin resistance. Mine are all gone away. I'm 60 years old. In my 40s, I started getting them, and I thought, it's just because I'm a grandma. I'm just at that age. It's going to happen. But I don't have any skin takes now. You've been referred to an endocrinologist today. We do have several endocrinologists who are recommending the system as well. So you can take it. I can give you the information. My number is in that link I gave you guys over on Facebook. Use that. You can contact me. I will give you all the information you need to take to your endocrinologist if you want it. I go live at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time every morning, Monday through Friday. So tomorrow morning at 8:30, we'll hop on. We'll talk about PCOS. If you happen to miss it, Melissa, it stores on my Facebook profile or my Facebook page as well. But YouTube is a great place to go find all of those videos. So if you happen to not be here at 8:30, it will be there for you to watch later. But I'd love for you to be here and ask questions so you can get your answers. Yep, you can grow. I'm diving more into. I grew up on a small Idaho farm. We had cows, we had pigs, we had chickens, we had goats. We grew our own garden. We had 5 little acres out in the middle of the woods that we cleared out and did all this stuff. I grew up with that, and I didn't think I was going to go back to that. But the more I learn about my health, and my children are like, Mom, we should kind of find a piece of property and do all this together. And so, yeah, Melissa, let me write your name down, and then if you just show up here again at 8:30 in the morning, I will try to remember to get it to you. Let me write your name down, hon, so I can make sure to notify you tomorrow. If you will friend request me, I will accept it, and let's get you some answers. Hopefully I can read my writing later. I'll see the comments on Facebook, and I can find that later. Okay, I'm going to come back here and see. Yeah, Bonnie has had severe trauma. And you guys just understand that, please. I know there's so many other things that can cause all of this, but the one big link, the one big thing that I can help people with, because I'm not a doctor, a nutritionist, a physician, just a woman who got sick and got better by addressing my insulin resistance, the one thing I can do is to tell you to get your insulin resistance under control. You will see a number of things happen in your body that are starting to improve. Your energy should improve. Your focus will improve. Your body-wide aches and pains should improve. Your headaches should improve. Joint stiffness and pain should improve. I had a knee that was supposed to be replaced 2 years ago. I've had three joint replacements, both hips and one knee. That other knee doesn't need to be replaced now. My hair stopped falling out and started coming back in. My eyesight reversed about 10 years of damage. My teeth and gums don't bleed every time I brush my teeth now. So many things happen for me, and it could happen for you too by getting your insulin resistance under control. So let me answer a couple of questions over here. It is not genetic. It is not genetic. So getting your insulin resistance under control, when I started the system, I was on Norco, Hydro, gabapentin, and I was cycling through NSAIDs because my pain was so bad I couldn't sleep. And it was like tough enough, like I felt like I was using all of my focus to just manage my day through the pain. I don't take any pain medications now. I don't have any prescriptions at all now. And all I did was address my insulin resistance. We can talk about pain next week and I can go over some of that. Um, so I do want to answer a couple more questions. So let's talk about a couple of things real quick. Melissa, I hope to see you tomorrow and check out the live stream afterward tomorrow for PCOS and get answers. So genetic, Pamela Allen says, I've told all my family to check this out. Getting ton of bloating, painful bloating. So you cured your thyroid eating from the land. So part of the bloating, you guys, is we just went over the gallbladder, right? The gallbladder and the liver not functioning properly can cause a lot of bloating. Now, I hope a lot of you guys can understand how that gallbladder is so important and why the bile that the gallbladder stores and releases at the right time is so important, because it helps with fat regulation. It helps, and the reason you're getting bloated after you eat is because your body is not being able to break down and metabolize the food that you're eating, because that liver and that gallbladder are so at risk and so struggling that they can't do their job. So if you don't have a gallbladder, you still have a sick liver, and we need to still address the insulin resistance that caused the gallstones, that caused the gallbladder removal in the first place, and start to address that so other things don't happen, like cirrhosis of the liver. So if you have no gallbladder, address your insulin resistance, but certainly add bile salts every time you eat to help with the digestion, absorption, and metabolism of the foods you do eat. Yeah. So, and then bloating and painful can also be intestinal problems, but we just talked about how bile also causes a pH imbalance, causing negative gut microbiota to thrive. Insulin, the excess sugar, also adds to that. So now we have a pH balance that's wrong. We have food for that negative gut microbiome. Now we have IBS, we have Crohn's, we have a number of things going wrong in the gut. Fiber. I can't say enough about how important fiber is. Most of us are getting less than half the fiber we need to eat. And in order to get the amount of fiber we need to eat, you guys, what I realized is, so the amount of fiber we need to get in, the amount of fiber in this, in the 2 packets of this, the amount of broccoli you would have to eat would be like a big bushel of broccoli. By the time I bought that much broccoli, I would have paid for this. I wouldn't have to eat all that. Do I eat fruits and vegetables? Yes, I do. But they're devoid of the fibers that they should have because of our modern food environment. Hydrochlorothiazide, HCl. There are a number of things. That's HCT. My brain is not pulling up HCl. So I use NutriCost bile salts. I know Dr. Berg has bile salts. You guys, the ones I use are in my profile link under my recommendations. So, wow, that Proverbs says, I did not have insulin resistance when you lost your gallbladder, lost it at 21 after first pregnancy. So it's time for me to get off, but I want to drop this with you. We'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow when we talk about PCOS. What I want everyone to understand, especially my younger ladies, you are insulin resistant slightly when you're pregnant. Your body is resistant to the insulin, that's going to your baby. Your energy is going to produce that baby. You yourself are a bit insulin resistant. That happens with every woman who becomes pregnant. So you may think you weren't insulin resistant before you were pregnant. You certainly were when you were pregnant. Now you're having, if you were before, and now you're having gestational diabetes or insulin resistance during pregnancy, you're at risk for causing more gallbladder issues. It's why there are so many women who have their gallbladders removed during pregnancy or post-pregnancy. The cue is this. What you're not being told is especially through breastfeeding, you guys, 6 times the amount of breast or insulin receptors in your breast tissue. When you breastfeed that baby, it's causing natural reactions in your body that allow you to become more insulin sensitive after the baby. It's allowing all of this stuff to contract more normally, and you're getting your health back while you're feeding your baby. Breastfeeding, we've seen, and I was just listening to a podcast on this, why we have more diabetes in children, why we have more of these problems, because they weren't breastfed. There's a lot that we need from the breast milk for our babies, but there's a lot we need from breastfeeding our babies that is not happening, like returning from insulin resistance, our gallbladder starting to have a proper motility. All happens after pregnancy, and breastfeeding can help that. So understand that. If this all happened to you after pregnancy, you still probably are having insulin resistance problems. And the thing is doctors were not, I just dropped a video on a better calculation to tell if you're insulin resistant. They haven't had a real way to tell outside of symptoms. So you may not have realized you were insulin resistant and been insulin resistant the whole time. Okay, so it's not about your A1C, your blood glucose, and your lipids. By the time those go up, you're already clinically pre-diabetic or diabetic. Insulin resistance can be present for 14 years before those numbers go up. Okay, so Pamela says she just came in from working her land, covered in manure. Got to go as she stinks from it. Yeah, PCOS tomorrow, guys. We'll talk about PCOS, metabolic infertility, what's happening, and how the same thing, addressing your insulin resistance, utilizing the system that I do, my profile or on the links on Facebook, YouTube. You guys try it out. I had so many people contact me yesterday after the live. Amazing. I actually get on the phone and talk with you, or just text if that's what you want. I'll do my best to answer what I can and help you through. If I don't know the answers, I'll go research and find them. So with that, we'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about PCOS. I always say this is my favorite subject, like gallbladder or heart or whatever. They really all are my favorite subject. I love talking about PCOS and metabolic infertility because I think we need to know. Back to the genetic part, it just kicked off in my mind. Somebody asked about genetics, Pamela. So look, you may have genes that say you're more likely to have this or that. There's always a light switch, a switch of some sort that turns it on. So you may have a body that's more likely to become insulin resistant, but that switch still has to get turned on. That switch for some of us is injury. That switch for most of us is food. And the environment that we're living in with the food we have available today. Not your fault. It's what you have available. We just got to understand what's happened to our food so we can put back what's been stripped out and start having bodies that function like they're supposed to. Our genetics have not changed that much in the last 50 years. Our food system has. So why do we have more of these problems and more obesity and more whatnot in the last 50 years if our genetics haven't changed? Why are we seeing more diabetes in children if our genetics haven't changed? Well, then we have to look at what could have changed in those 50 years, and that's our food. So we just need to understand that fixing what happened to our food is what's going to help us. A medication is not going to do that. A GLP-1 is not going to fix the food, the nutrition that you're getting in. A GLP-1 is not going to help your gallbladder work properly to help you metabolize those fat-soluble vitamins, your fats, and your glucose. So I hope this was helpful to many of you this morning. We'll be back tomorrow and talk about PCOS. Thank you all for joining me. Love you all. And remember, I won't be live on Friday because I have another event. If I can go live later in the day, I will, but my normal 8:30 time, I won't be here Friday. But I will be here the next 2 days. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. And thanks everybody over on Facebook, YouTube. You can find the replay on my page. Many of you can just go back to YouTube later and find it, or it is on Facebook. And I will do my best. I won't say a good job. I never promise that. I do the best I can to get some of these live replays put into categories on YouTube so it's easier for you guys to find the ones you need. I'll work on that this weekend. In the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow.